Siege monsters have come a long way.
My name is Lao Shanlong, and I'm here to walk in a straight line and ignore all of you.
To the greatest maritime hero Monster Hunter has ever known. And when it comes to these giant beasties, I think there is very much distinctly two camps of hunters of people of you. And that is very much a love it or a hate it scenario. I think on the whole, people objectively like the monster itself. I like that Lao Shanlong exists. He looks cool. He's a fun mountain dragon. Do I necessarily like spending 20 minutes stabbing his foot? Perhaps no. And then you have the other side of things, where siege monsters, I think arguably more than any other type of monster in the game, are capable of creating the peak, the best, the most exhilarating first-time experiences and memories. Do you remember your first Sapphire of the Emperor? Because I bet you do. I do. Why is he in the air?
Oh! What?
Oh!
What?
Run!
I can't
What is
see!
this? What is this? What is this happening? We're like in an infernal furnace full of what is happening? Help me!
Oh, the rocks! The rocks! The rocks! The rocks!
The rocks! I realise it helps to remember it that it's on camera and recorded on the internet forever and always, but the point remains it was amazing. And it was amazing! What a cool moment! It just... And what a cool dragon! And then the weapons and the armor, I mean, whatever you feel about the equipment and the progress and that side of things tied to a given siege fight, I don't think that's fair to specifically judge the siege fight for, as they could attach any kind of reward system to essentially any kind of siege fight. It just depends on how they're feeling. It's not like Safi rolled up and went, I will only be here if you have RNG weapons and upgrading them with essence as a way to make them stronger, or I'm just not going to give you my awesome fight. You know, Capcom settled him with that, and I kind of liked it. I thought it was a fun system, certainly better than Kulve Taroth, and I'm okay with it, but I'm not going to take points away from Safi'jiiva, the dragon, the hunt, the man, the myth, the legend, because of the way his reward structure was, well, structured. The point I'm trying to say here is, through the annals of Monster Hunter history, there has been some real highs and some real lows. In fact, perhaps the highest highs and indeed the lowest lows when you look at the siege monsters. You got stuff like a sand-shipped sand whale, which back in the 3rd generation was insanely awesome and a huge step up from crab walks down a corridor. Ho, this is better than dragon walks down a corridor. And then you have the evolution continuing to something like Gogmazios, our Lord Savior, and Gog above. He was impeccable and still is to this day, and I cannot wait to face him again with Cotton in the 4 Ultimate series. So, are these encounters all best to be forgotten? Especially when you look in the context of Monster Hunter 6, which is our next big chapter in the Monster Hunter franchise, because with Rise and Sunbreak essentially all but living out their life cycle without this kind of experience, were they better or worse for it? I think everyone probably has a siege monster on their bottom 5 least exciting hunts they've been on, but I would also argue everybody probably has a giant CG fight in their top 10 monsters full stop. That might be sweeping, that might be bold, but I don't think there is a category of monster that has the biggest difference between your first hunt and your 10th. It starts off as the, oh my god, this is insane, it's massive and it's doing what? It's so cool at the scale, oh my god, to, oh, I just want to hunt something normal. This is just, it drags. Like, there's always such a cliff that a siege monster falls off. but is that worth it? Is that a necessary evil to reach the peak before the fall to begin with? Because damn, is that peak good. So ultimately then, this question boils down to two parts. The first is Rise and Sunbreak. Without a traditional big CG monster fight. Though it should be noted as a disclaimer, I am making this video before the details of Title Update 5 are revealed, so if we got like a sudden Lao Shanglun reimagining out of nowhere, then, well, this no longer applies. And I, for one, am in two minds when it comes to this. The first is, in base Rise at least, I think the Rampage fulfilled that kind of itch of that kind of more gimmicky event with siege weapons, but obviously not against a specific siege monster, just in the wave format that it was, and I think people got kind of tired of that fast enough to the point where Sunbreak was rightly a much needed palate cleanser, refresher, and break from that sort of environment, and that's why it didn't really happen again. But on the other side of the coin, a Wirebug world is an amazing world for siege fights. A free climbing world is an amazing world for siege fights. And when I say siege fights, I don't necessarily mean specifically the Lao, specifically the Kulve, specifically that kind of setup. Even to me, something like Atal'Kar with the mech, it's a normal hunt, yes, but the mech part feels siegey, right? It's a more gimmicky, specific, you climb up, you run the gauntlet, you pop the egg, and then you go back to the normal hunt portion against the Mantis. So even something like Atal Nesto with wirebugs and climbing, you can just zip up, hop on, climb up, zip to the cocoon. It would probably make it easier, so that would have to be compensated for, but it would make it feel awesome. Or to go more traditionally the true definition in something like Zora Magdaros, I'm not saying having wirebugs and free climbing all over him would have made him suddenly, you know, amazing, but it would have made him a hell of a lot better to actually have that. Especially as you could have had much more interaction with Nergi, as you can get around a lot quicker and he doesn't need to be restricted to just the one main kind of battle platform. He could be swooping about the place, landing in different areas, attacking from hovering in the sky up on the upper parts of Zora, and you can respond quickly because of wirebug zipping around and climbing easily. That would definitely be neat. Or just you're on the big wooden wall that's totally going to stop Zora. It's still one of the weirdest things that's ever happened in Monster Hunter that anybody thought that would work. And you can just leap off it, zip over wirebug to his face, climb up on his face, and start attacking him. As opposed to wing draking back and forth, you take yourself back and forth. That would add an extra layer that definitely would turn up the replayability on a fight like that, and I just think it is ultimately a shame we've not had a kind of Kulve Tarothi Safi'jiiva-esque experience plus wirebugs in Rise and Sunbreak. Even the Caverns of El Dorado had the beetles everywhere, wedge beetles that let you zip about the place, because that was kind of necessary to operate with how Kulve worked, with how she moved around. You needed to be able to get everywhere quickly in the first phases of that siege. So if you just had wireblugs and free climbing instead, that obviously would have flowed even better and been a lot smoother and therefore more enjoyable. Though I did absolutely love Kulve Taroth as a monster and that whole experience, so it definitely didn't need it, but it would have been very immediately cool to have. So, with that in mind then, Monster Hunter 6. Would it be weird, or nay, even bad, or even a missed opportunity, a point against it preemptively, if we were to have a new Monster Hunter game entirely, a new gen, without a siege fight in? I feel like probably, it almost feels like a mainline Monster Hunter game, or at least a new one, should just have a siege fight. Like, it kind of makes sense. It's sort of expected. One big massive monster that's so big and massive you have to approach it in a different way to a normal hunt. That's kind of forced on you, and it's some sort of big event with everyone and siege weapons, and it just seems so quintessentially Monster Hunter-y, as that's always happened. But at the same time, again, they always end up being quite a to to farm. So really, is missing that experience definitively a bad thing? I really am kind of torn on the issue. I really am. I love the siege monsters, but I don't love most of the siege hunts. A couple of them I think are absolutely phenomenal, but I think there's been more misses than hits when we look at a pure mechanical fun standpoint. Though, I guess in that vein, that doesn't mean you should stop, right? Inevitably, the formula will be refined and we will reach this perfect peak of a true siege experience that also feels like a repeatable, exhilarating hunt that doesn't get old at any pace. And it's entirely possible that that just needs us to push the boundaries of Monster Hunter a little bit further. And when would that happen? Obviously in a new gen, with new technologies, with a new expansion of what is even possible within the Monster Hunter universe, like we had with World and Iceborne changing everything. I have no doubt Monster Hunter 6 is going to do some really unthought about, advanced, oh my god, this is incredible stuff. And if that's done contextually within the confines of an expanded siege experience, I can only see that being amazing. And I think bottom line, I'm always going to be in favor of a new giant monster joining the lineup, however we take it on. Zora might have been like watching paint dry after just the first time, but I'm so happy Zora Magdaros exists, giant walking tortoise lava dragon. I mean, that's awesome that that's a thing. So getting more like that is never going to be a true overall negative in my book. It really just comes down to the development time, I think, because Zora took like a year to crack, and would that year have been better spent doing 5 other new large monsters and skipping the whole existence of Zora and the story and his missions? Maybe, maybe not. It's really hard to say, and it's certainly something that Capcom will have a much better handle on than me just randomly talking in this video. Essentially though, I thought it'd be quite an interesting thing to talk about, with the lack of siege monsters being really a thing in recent Monster Hunter times, and want to know your thoughts on. Are you Team Siege Monster always, or are you, I could take it or leave it? Also, would love to know your favourite one. For now, like if you enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more. Consider supporting the future channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.